Today, we want to talk about how to develop your IT security architecture for your enterprise, or what we call it sometimes enterprise IT security architecture. But the question is why? Why I will start thinking about that. And what is architecture actually? Normally, architecture is the art of design and build something. And in our case here, we'll try to design and build a IT security solution for our organization that can address all the risk scenarios related to our organization and to our environment. This is the meaning of architecture in general, and especially when it comes to information security. Why we would need that? Nowadays, we have a lot of attacks, a lot of threats related to cybersecurity. One of the examples that maybe you heard about it 2 years ago or 3 years ago, 2 years ago in 2017 was WannaCry ransomware attack. In WannaCry ransomware attack, we saw that a lot of hospitals in UK, for instance, they were infected with this ransomware attack. All their own data was encrypted, and they saw a message saying that you should pay a ransom through the deep web using Bitcoin. And if you search in this type of attack, you will discover how much it is important for us to build a good IT security architecture for our enterprise. Let me show you a brief for this type of attack. Normally, I give this type of attack as an example for governance, because if you have a governance and you have effective governance, you will have a good solution to protect yourself from this type of attack. As you can see, this attack was attacking different countries, and US was one of them in FedEx. And we are not far away from ransomware attack. We saw it a lot in the last 1 year or 2 years in Baltimore, Atlanta, different government sectors there. If we dig deep in this type of attack, we'll discover that it is using a ransomware that can encrypt the data. Normally, this ransomware is just a malware encrypting your data, and if you want me to decrypt your data for you, I will ask you for sending me money through the Bitcoin. But how I will send this application to you, this malware that can encrypt the data? For sure, I need a weakness exist in your system. One of your system, because when we are talking about enterprise, we are talking about a lot of business units, a lot of components. And for sure, I will find a weakness in one of these components, or what we call it vulnerability. So if I can find a vulnerability in your system, I can send this application, this malware actually, that can encrypt the data. And this is what happened with WannaCry. There was a vulnerability, we call it internal blue. And this internal blue vulnerability already discovered by NSA, but normally, like any nation state agency, they will not reveal about this type of vulnerability. Then some other APT guys, advanced persistent threat, they attack some servers in NSA, they discover the vulnerability, and they show it to the public. This APT guy is called shadow brokers. This happened in March 2017. The vulnerability itself, we can categorize it or classify it as remote code execution. Remote code execution, from the term itself, it means that I can remotely execute a code in the victim machine. What code I will execute it? The WannaCry, the malware that can encrypt the data. And this is actually what happened after 2 months, when a group of people decide to use this vulnerability and start encrypting the traffic, the data inside these hospitals and FedEx and US and so on. But we need to remember something, that once shadow brokers publish the vulnerability in the internet, and this has happened in March 2017, in the same day, Microsoft Microsoft is the vendor that have this vulnerability, and this vulnerability actually exists in Windows. They release a hotfix so people can protect themselves from this vulnerability and fix it. The vulnerability that we are talking about here is very simple. Yes, it is remote code execution vulnerability. They already use it, the attacker use it here, but if you dig deep a little bit in this vulnerability, you discover that it is attacking a simple protocol in Windows. We call it SMB protocol, and normally it is attacking SMB version 1. We don't use nowadays version 1. We use version 3.2, 3.3, and for some reason, version 1 is still enabled in our machines. And this vulnerability exists in version 1. So actually, this hotfix was just disabling the SMB version 1. Anyway, Microsoft give you the solution in the same day. After 8 weeks, we have this attack happening. What does this mean? This means that these hospitals, this FedEx and other organizations in different countries, they didn't really have a good IT security architecture. And when we talk about IT security architecture, this will make us to ask ourselves a lot of questions. How you are governance your company. What is the regulation that you should comply with? And are you really comply with it? Regulation, we have different regulation that we need to follow, depending on the sector that we are working with. If I'm working with an enterprise that we can classify it as a financial institute, in this case, I have some regulation like SOX. This is a regulation, that federal regulation that any company traded in the US market should follow, and it is talking about how you will protect your financial information. GLBA, this is related to privacy, more about privacy. Normally you will find it in banking. With banks, when sometimes you want to have a loan from a bank and your original account in another bank, the company that you want to take the loan from them, the bank that you want to take the loan from them, they will tell you, okay, please sign this paper, because this paper will allow us to ask about your financial record and your original bank. They are following GLBA. Hospitals, these 17 hospitals in UK that infected with WannaCry, for sure they don't follow the regulation. In US, we have a regulation for that. We call it HIBA, H-I-B-B-A. This is related to how to protect your medical records, or what we call it protected health information. Normally, you might think that medical information is only going to be related to companies like health insurance or or hospitals, but actually even your enterprise, because you have a health insurance for your employees, and the health insurance company for sure sending you monthly report about how much they spend in your employee when it comes to medical stuff. You need to protect these information, and you need to, and HIBA made also for that. Do I follow these regulations? Because sometimes if you are not following the regulation, if you are not compliant to regulation, there is non-compliance penalties, and I need to know about it. And this is one of the important things that your stakeholders care about, because we need to understand something very important when it comes to IT enterprise architecture. We need to think about the threats and the attacks from our management side, from our management perspective. They are not a technical guy. They care about how much money they will lose if they are not compliant to this regulation, if they going to be attacked and their own image, their own company image or brand will be affected. We saw that with Sony in few years ago when their own email servers attacked, and even one of the movies was attacked. Do you have an information security program? Do you have policies, standards, procedures, guidelines? What about the incident response plan? When the last time you checked your business impact analysis and you reviewed your risk analysis and assessment? Which framework you are following when you created all above policies and plans or strategies? Do you have the latest security control and how you are using them? And what is your KGI, your key performance indicator, key goal indicators, and key risk indicators, and how you are using them? All this should be created and answered using what we call it enterprise information security architecture. So today we need to answer a few questions. The first question that come in our mind, and we talk about it now a little bit, was information security governance. And what is the outcome of information security governance? Any organization will have information security governance. Governance means that I'm trying to make a rules that we are going to follow in our organization. And when I say information security governance, here I'm talking about rules related to information security. We don't accept, for example, that someone can bring his own smartphone or his laptop to work inside our organization. We don't accept what we call bring your own device. So I decide that, who am I? For sure, I am the high management. The higher management is going to decide about these things. And then we need to have a strategy to make this governance happen. Strategy normally means a plan. I need a plan to do that. Then I will have a few activities that make this plan happening. That's what we call it program. And if we are talking about information security, it will be information security program. One of the mechanisms that can make the information security governance happening is your information security policy, standard, guidelines, and procedures. And normally when you are thinking about these things, you will start thinking about what is the outcome that I will have. Normally, the outcome from information security governance will be minimize the risk and maximize the value. You need to make sure that you are following the regulation. You need to make sure that you are meeting all the legal department requirements. You need to make sure that you have a security awareness and a program, and this program is effective, and everyone is following it and understand it, and it's giving us a good outcome. And the most important thing, your information security governance, and after that, for sure, then your design for that, which is the architecture, because we said in the end, architecture is just the art of design and build something, and something here is addressing all the risk related to your organization. All this should happening and should be also aligned with your organization goals, with your business strategy. All this should be working and moving in the same way and aligned together. And normally when we think about enterprise IT, information security enterprise architecture, we need to remember a very important thing. Your design will follow the top-down approach, not bottom-up approach. Top-down approach means that you will start from the top. You will start from your stakeholders. Who's your stakeholders? Your management. Remember, in the end, you will invest money in your information security in your organization, and your stakeholders need to understand why they will need to spend all this money. And they are not technical guys, so you need to explain to them exactly why we are doing this. Because there is something very important. your architecture will fail if you don't have the right support from your stakeholders, from your managers. The outcome of information security governance will be strategic alignment, which means my information security program is aligned with my business strategy and serving my business strategy. Risk management is important. I need to have risk management in my enterprise. Risk management is something not only related to projects or related to what you are going to do in the next few weeks. It is something should be planned well, managed well, and also something you need to monitor every day. You need to start thinking about what's the risks that you could face in your organization, how you will handle it, what is your response, what's your response plan, how you will treat these risks. And also you need to monitor the risk every day. Every day you need to monitor what risk I could have in my organization right now. For sure, one of the things that will help you to do that is checking the logs, the reports. If we are talking about internal resources, you need to go to your syslog servers, your CIEM, like Splunk or something, and start checking everything. If you have a SOC team, it will be great, because one of the responsibility for your SOC team is monitoring the network every day and try to check if you are following the compliance. What about the operations? Everything is fine. What about the threat and even threat hunting? We have also value delivery, optimizing the utilization of our resources. Do we have a performance measurement, how we will monitor and report everything? And for sure, when it comes to performance measurement, we will start thinking about the question that we just saw in the previous slides related to KPI and KRI and all these key indicator things. Example for strategic alignment here is, what about if we have an organization that normally is working in career search? Their mission is be the best marketplace for job seeker and recruiters. Okay, this is a good mission. Any organization will have a mission and vision also. And to have this mission and vision happening, I need to have objectives. And I need to create a plan to reach these objectives. So their own objectives is integrating with the leading business social network like LinkedIn, develop an APIs that can facilitate the transformation from leading career to and recruiting platform. And they need a strategy to make sure this happening. From information security perspective, I need to check the vulnerability in my web application or on my app, especially that we are in the apps era nowadays. Then I will start thinking about security and metrics, and I will put in my mind how many, what is the percentage of software developers that not yet trained in my organization, number of critical vulnerability identified, time to remediate a critical and high vulnerability when our vulnerability scanners discover it, or any security product that you have. So enterprise information security architecture is a part of your enterprise architecture. And that's why we said it should be aligned with your business strategy. And we can say that enterprise information security architecture is the practice to describe the current and or the future structure and behavior for your organization security processes. Now, if you want to explain this part, let me tell you something. Let's return back to the two slides and here in objectives. I said that we have objectives, and normally objectives will serve goals, and the goals is serving the mission. Let's assume that one of your goal is being a cybersecurity specialist. How to do that? My objective is going to pass and take some exams, like some certification, like CISSP. So my goal is being a cybersecurity specialist or expert. And in this case, one of my objectives is passing the CISSP exam. Once you understand your objective, and once your objective is really defined in the right way, you will start thinking, what is your current state now? What is your current structure? And remember, I'm just making it simple because if we're talking about enterprise IT information security architecture, in this case, I need to check what is my current architecture and what is my future architecture or my desired architecture that I want to reach. Same thing here in my example. If we return back to my example, if I want to be a CISSP, in this case, I need to check to reach this objective, which is going to lead me to my goal to be a cybersecurity expert. In this case, I will start thinking, what is my current knowledge that I have? What's my current states? And I will say, okay, my current state that I already have the knowledge of cybersecurity plus, for example. This is enough to pass the CISSP exam? Because my desired state is having the CISSP certification in my hand. To reach this desired state from my current state, I need to do some gap analysis because there is a gap between both of them. And this gap analysis will lead me to think about, okay, I need to take a course in CISSP to cover like maybe 50% only from the outline. I already know the first 50%, but the remaining 50% I don't know, and I need to take course for that. This is one of the activity that I need to do to fill the gap. Same for your organization. You need to start thinking, do we have policies? You need to start actually answer the questions that I just showed to you. You need to start thinking about your information security architecture. How many routers how many firewalls we have? Do we have a information classification program? Do we have a physical security program? Is physical security program is separate from our information security program? All these things related to architecture, you need to start thinking about it. But in the same time, you need to make sure that your business strategy and this IT security topic is aligned together. That in the end, I'm having my information security and I'm focusing in my information security in the scope of my business strategy. How to create enterprise information security architecture? Frankly speaking, you will need a framework. What is framework? We hear about a lot of frameworks, like for example, ISO 27001, 002. We have a lot. What about these framework? What is the meaning of framework? It is very simply a few pages that you need to read. Then you need to take what is fitting your needs from it. You don't need to follow it 100%. And it will save you money. Because if you go to your stakeholders and you say, I need to create an enterprise information security architecture, I need to build and design how we will protect our organization from all different type of attacks, DDoS attack, malware attacks, different type of malware attacks, ransomware, viruses, worms, how we will do it. And in this case, we will say, okay, let's go for subject matter experts. And subject matter expert in web application, and he knows about these type of attacks: SQL injection, XSS attack, cross-site script attack, all these things. And we need someone is subject matter expert in network infrastructure, so he can understand what is R poisoning, what is DHCP starvation attack, all these type of attacks. What is VLAN hooping, and so on. Maybe in the end, I will be sitting with 5 to 6 person subject matter experts, and I will spend like 8 weeks with them trying to create a 100 pages that cover all the information and all the benefits that we can take it from these guys. And instead of spending all this time and money, for sure, frameworks made to help you for that. I will give you the 100 pages, try to follow it, try to read it. You don't need to follow everything on it, but in the end, it will save you money and time. And normally, we need enterprise architecture framework, and especially when it comes to information security enterprise architecture framework, because it will try to bring the business people and the information security people, technology people in the same wave. And enterprise architecture means will allow you not only to understand the company from the several different points of view, but also understand how a change that takes place at one level will affect items at other levels or other business units. Remember, in the end, your enterprise is made of different components, different business units, and they all related to each other. So the relationship between all these business units in your organization, you need to understand it. You need to understand all the components inside your organization. You need to understand what is the regulation that you are following. All these, and you comply for it. And all this you need to understand. Then you can start thinking about how I will design my enterprise information security architecture. And for sure, later you need to start thinking about how make this architecture more proactive. I will explain this in a minute. Before I go to this slide, I need to add something related to framework. Sometimes regulation can be used as a framework. We can give a good example for that as BCI DSS. BCI DSS is a regulation similar to, same like HIPAA, SOX, GLBA, but this one used for any organization that's going to use credit card information in their own transactions. Any app that's going to take your credit card information, banks, anything. They should follow a BCI DSS. BCI DSS is not, it is not a regulation that you will be forced to follow. Maybe you are a bank, maybe you are an organization that have a lot of apps, and these apps dealing with credit card from customers. But in the end, it will be different from one country to another. Some countries, you will find them forcing their all banks and their all organization that dealing with the credit card information to start following the BCI DSS regulation. And if you check the BCI DSS regulation, you will find that it's saying that you should protect your credit card information in the 3 states of your data. Your data could be stored or somewhere, and this is what we call it data at rest. Could be sent from one machine to another. This is what we call it data in transit or data in motion. And could be exist in a machine and the CPU is processing it. This is what we call data in use. You need to protect, if these data is a credit card information, you need to protect it in the 3 states. And in this case, when you open this regulation, you will find that BCI DSS regulation, you will find that they are saying also few lines that could be hard to implement. Sometimes you will think it is very easy because, for example, they are saying that 2 sides should be, when the 2 sides in your organization, one of your headquarter talking to one of the spokes or the branches, this is what we call the spokes, trying to talk to each other, and there is a credit card information, we need to encrypt the data. So these 2 sides should be encrypted. The headquarter and the other side, or 2 sides talking to each other, they should be, these data should be encrypted. And if you go to your IT guys, you will discover that our 2 sides is actually just 2 data centers. So I need to make sure that these 2 two data centers that they already connected with each other in some sophisticated ways using OTV, ISIS protocol, and all these things, I need to add security and encryption to all the data there. Maybe they will tell you we need 2 weeks, 3 weeks to implement this. And you're just doing this for one line. Later, the BCI DSS guys can come do audit in your organization, then they will say you are certified BCI DSS 3.3 or something. In the same time, you could go to another enterprise that maybe they don't care to follow BCI DSS or to be certified actually from BCI DSS, but they will say, you know something? The information in this regulation is very important. Why we are, it is talking about credit card, but we can think about the data in general. Let's widen our knowledge here, and let's assume that this regulation is not talking about credit card only. Let's say it's talking about all type of data. Let's see what they are talking, because if I want to protect my data could be more valuable. It will not be less valuable than my credit card information. It's the same. So let's follow this regulation. And that's why, by the way, BCI DSS is considered also a framework, not only a regulation. One of the things that very important when we talk about enterprise information security architecture is the concept view. We need to understand that you will start with, as we said before, you will start with the management level, the C levels and above, and you will start talking to them about your information security architecture and what's your plan to do, how you will secure our network. And you are saying that, guys, first of all, we need these policies, we need these things. And you need to understand something very important is understanding to make your architecture very powerful. This architecture should be good for all stakeholders, for all C levels in another meaning. All people that involve and they have a upper decision in your team, they should find the architecture good and it's fitting their own view. Each one has its own point of view. I will go to the legal department and they have their own view when it comes to information and how to secure it. If I go to the accounting department, they have their own point of view for sure. If I can make my architecture fitting all these views, it will be something important, and it will be an indicator that your architecture is going to be successful. Another thing that you need also to put in your design for your information security architecture is making it a proactive architecture. What I mean by making it proactive architecture is the capability to be dynamic and not only respond for different type of threats, but also ready to respond for any threats that we still don't know about it. Example for that, and this is one of the challenges that you will have with your management, because normally you need to give them a business case and try to justify the reason why you are doing this, why you are doing that. And sometimes they will need to understand what you are doing. And let's take an example for that. Let's assume that you have a network, and this network made by Cisco routers, Cisco switches, and you have identity management solution, maybe like Cisco ICE, and also you decide to upgrade your switches, your layer 2 switches and your multi-layer switches to the new series that Cisco have, Catalyst 9K switches. And you start thinking about, I will bring 9,800 here, 9,200 here, and so on. Let's move the 2960, let's move the other 3000 series multi-layer switches, because these switches is now the latest, and we need to also make use of few things inside it, like it's embedded with wireless LAN controller capability, all these things. And for sure, maybe we'll move to another application, DNA center, and in this case, you will be working in software-defined access environment. Anyway, then
yeah, sir, I just want to let you know we have to wrap it up soon. We're supposed to be out at 1:40.
Yes, I'm going to finish in a minute.
Thank you. I have announcements too for our attendees. Thanks.
And let's assume that you heard about something that these switches can do for you. Encrypting traffic analytics, ETA. These switches have a information security capability to detect the malware if it is encrypted. Because if the malware is encrypted, I will discover it. I cannot see it. I cannot read it. But using artificial intelligence and machine learning, I can discover that. So I would say, okay, good. Let's run it. Let's make our architecture proactive. I would not wait for 2020 or 2021 till we start seeing this type of attack, malware. We already have malwares that this type of attack, but I mean, it's going to be widely, like the ransomware, and we will hear it in the news every few months. Actually, I will not wait for that. Let's run the ETA. It's a feature in the switches, but suddenly I will discover that I need to buy another product, like Cisco SteelWatch. It's a simple net flow collector, DLP, data loss prevention, but also I need it to take the information and send it to SteelWatch so I can see if I have this encrypted malware or not. So in this case, I need to buy something. So I need to go to the managers. I need to explain to them the importance of the ETA feature, the importance of the need of another product, because it depends on another product. Yes, it's a feature in the switch, but it will need to send the information to SteelWatch and so on. So, but in the end, your architecture is proactive. Anyway, finally, I just want to show you one of the framework. If you ask me what is the best framework for creating IT information security architecture, I will tell you SAPSA or SAPSA. It is very powerful because normally you will ask yourself few questions, and you will try to ask these. You will try to ask these questions from different perspectives. In another meaning, you can ask the question from the logical perspective, from component, from operational, from conceptual, and so on, and start answering the question. In another meaning, you are trying to cover this concept of views. You remember when I said each one in your C-level has his point of view. Each one of your business unit have their own his point of view, and they need to cover all these point of views, even the point of view of using some security assets. In this case, SPSA will be the solution, will be the framework that you need to follow. If you told me what is the best framework to use here.